Hey, my name's Chris. It's the 22nd of April 2016. Today I'm going to talk about the telecommunications infrastructure in Australia, how it's broken, and how the Anglicans like it broken, how they utilize it, and how the technically accomplished students at this school and within the Anglican organization, telecommunications experts, engineers, computer scientists, and the sort that work within the Anglican organization utilize the broken system to their own advantage to gain information, to gain data, and to gain things like ideas, to steal ideas, which goes into copyrights and inventions and such, and also personal gain by acquiring data for leverage, possibly things like blackmail, insider trading, information on markets or futures or anything that will lead to an advantage that can be stored on a computer, can be accessed by these people using an attack called Incendia. I'll talk about that in another video, several other videos. I should make a dedicated video to it. Okay, so one, they utilize, so back to my little point checklist, they utilize a broken communications network. They use their skills and access to that network. Employees of Telstra, for example, would use their position and do favors for the Anglican Church. For example, I talked about that in the last video about the harassment phone call with the imitating voice, and also that they want the system to stay, and also my experience with that second time. Firstly, I want to comment about the infrastructure is extremely broken. Since I've lived here, the front Telstra pillar has been unlocked. And all over Sydney and probably all over Australia, it's a broken system. The copper network is so old and so archaic, and there's no money put into it, especially since Telstra went private. No money is put into it, and a large amount of expectation is expected from it, and yet it's so corrupted and so broken and so old. I can't even imagine being a Telstra or a worker working on the fault, chasing wires down, because it's horrible. You should see the rat nests of some of these pillars and junction boxes and main distribution frameworks. It's just insane. So it's broken. Secondly, like I said in the last video, an example would be the Anglican, or the person who does all the work for the Anglicans here, Sinshat. I'll call him Sinshat. I have evidence that he left the pillar open on one occasion, at least, when he signed off that it was closed, and yet it was still open. Now, of course, everything that they do, there's deniability, so he has deniability that someone came after him and unlocked it, and that he signed off, and when he signed off on the paper, it was locked. But see, what they would do then is they would hand the key to their friend, and their friend would unlock it, and he would leave, and he would say, oh yeah, and little things like that to get away from taking responsibility. That's a hypothetical situation. I don't know for a fact if that's happened, but I know that he's supposed to have checked off on the pillar being signed, and it wasn't locked, and that he is the same person that does all the checks for all the units that belong to the Anglicans, and that by having the pillar unlocked, it gives the Anglicans here that are attacking our computers deniability, because they can say, well, the pillar was unlocked. The pillar was unlocked. Anybody could have walked by the pillar and had a butt set phone and plugged it into the alligator clipped onto the jumpers. Anybody could have done that. How can you prove it's us? It could have been the building behind us, which is another topic for another conversation, because the Anglicans probably own units in that building too, and probably have some of their people planted in there, maybe students or friends or whatever, Anglican sympathizers or whatever. The point of the matter is their wealth is massive, and the power that they have is massive. Their property acquisition is just mounting and growing and growing and growing, despite their public perception that they're not wealthy. I mean, you hear about Catholic wealth, but you ever hear about Anglican wealth? So a lot of that acquisition of wealth is through data and through information. Information is, is the most powerful thing, and it's the most it's the most valuable commodity, especially in this modern world. So okay, so the system is broken, and the copper network is absolutely corrupted and completely chaotic. So despite the face that they put out to the world, the telecommunications infrastructure in Australia is completely broken. I don't advise anybody who comes to Australia to trust any phone or any telecommunications here, including the networks, including the wireless, and especially all the people running them. There's a lot of really, really corrupt people running the telecommunications system in Australia, and a lot of the techies are making money, I think, off of acquiring data and then selling it. So, for example, a techie who has access to a high-profile motel, and say Sylvester Stallone stays in there and makes a phone call looking for growth hormone, well, that techie's going to be on a butt set in the basement with his alligator clips to the jumpers, listening to that phone call. He's going to call up Channel 7 or anything, any person who's interested in buying the information. That's what I mean. And since there's no security in Australia, you can't expect any phone call to be secure. I can guarantee you, especially if you're a high-profile person like a celebrity or Wozniak, the Apple guy, you're going to be monitored and watched everywhere you go. So, well, how does this utilized by the Anglicans that I came into contact with here at the Moore Theological Bible College? Well, for example, when I first came here, one of the first alarming things that I heard was a conversation on a phone a guy was having, and he was talking about Muslims, and he was talking about how he took this great course and it was really fantastic, and it taught him how to win arguments with Muslims. And I thought that was kind of an insensitive thing to say. But the way he said it, he was really excited and really happy, and it was almost like a feeding frenzy. It was almost like someone who just got a brand new machete and he was looking for someone's head to lop off. Personally, that's what I thought. Like he just found a new tool, a new powerful weapon that he was looking forward to using on any Muslim that he could find, on how to win an argument, using all these wonderful techniques that they taught him in this course or in this seminar or whatever. So since day one, I realized that the Anglicans here, if you hear squeaking on the stairs, just ignore that. That's Full Flea next door, and he's probably up monitoring the computer. Of course, he's going to say it's his kid, but he gets up long before his kid gets up. One day, when I realized finally the extent of the danger of these attacks that the Anglican students were committing against us, against our computer, when I pulled out the wireless card and the Bluetooth card and saw that they were still attacking us and I wasn't connected to the internet, and I'm like, what the heck? How is this possible? I thought, well, you have a responsibility because you found this thing and nobody else knows about it. You have a responsibility to go out there and, except for them, except for the attackers, except for the Australian government, whoever gave them the knowledge of how to do this. I think, off topic, but I think the wireless card was actually invented in Australia, so it wouldn't surprise me if they have some kind of way around that. I think I may have mentioned that in another video. It's possible that I don't know if I could research that. Anyways, back to the thing. So I had a sense of responsibility, and the most vulnerable group or culture within Australia, because Australia is like Australia, and then their subcultures are like the white supremacists and like the First National guys who are all about kick everyone out, and it's only about white people. Whites are the only Australians, and then there's like the Aboriginal people who are trying to fight for their rights, and then there's like Greeks and Italians, and then there's like Turkish people and Russians, and there's all these different groups, right? So they're kind of like subcultures, and Muslims are like a subculture, but the Muslims have this like it seems like they don't really like technology too much. They'll use it but they don't trust it, and not all of them, but just some of them, and rightly so, because I don't trust technology now that I've seen in Senra. So I wanted to let them know. So what I did was, and there's also a couple other groups that I was concerned about. There was like, I was worried about Palestinians and I was worried about Jewish people. But I figured that since Jewish people had so much financial influence, that they must know something about this. And they have so many clever people involved in the computer industry that they must know something about Incinera. So I was thinking, okay, try to contact the most vulnerable people first. So I went to talk to the Muslims. So I went to a mosque. Now, when I went to the mosque, I was at the mosque, and I thought, oh, crap, turn off your phone. So I turned off my phone, and then I thought, well, that's not good enough, so I pulled out the battery. Well, when I pulled out the battery and I talked to the guy, I was disappointed with the conversation. The person didn't seem interested, and I just kind of made a fool of myself. But when I put the battery back in the phone and was on my way and went, returned home and put the battery in the phone, what happened was really weird, and this is what I'm going to show you right now. Yeah, okay, so when I put my battery back in to my phone after I had finished trying to talk to the person, this whole slew, this was quite a while ago, that's the date there, this was quite a while ago, but this whole slew of the same phone number came up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different phone calls from the same phone. Here you can see there's the phone number. They tried calling and no message was left, but they were trying to call. They were using a phone number to try and contact my phone. And I think what they were trying to do is location. I think they were using their technical expertise and using like a burner number or a number that was set up for this purpose. I think they were trying to contact my number and figuring out the location of my phone via the answer that was gotten by the phone. And if I had my phone on, none of these phone calls would have got to me, because I had my phone on the whole time and I never ever saw this number or never got any phone calls from this number. So what I'm trying to say is that they used a whole series of phone numbers to try and record it, and for some reason my phone my phone picked up all these numbers. Normally I wouldn't have got this phone call. They would have just called my phone and the phone would not have rang. I wouldn't have picked it up, but they would have noticed where I was by triangulating my phone location when it received the call. However, I don't think that they have some kind of way of making it so that my phone does not answer when this number calls it. So they'll just get the technical data that they want, but they won't have to talk to me on the phone. I'm not going to pick it up. However, when I took the battery out, for some reason it recorded all of them. Regardless, I don't have to say that you can probably guess that they fixed this very quickly as soon as they saw what had happened. As soon as they saw this in my record, they fixed it, and it never happened after that again. So here's the date. It's the 14th day of the 6th month, and here on the very bottom, so you can see that was a while ago. Here on the very bottom is the same number on the same day. That's on the same day, and it's a different number. There's the number right there. It's a different number, but it's on the same day, and I got it when I returned home. So right when I pulled in my car, basically, I got another text, and this is the text that I got. So let's look at what the text is. Okay, so making use of pork will bring it by later. Obviously, that's a message intended to insult, a message intended to say that they knew that I went to the mosque, and a message intended to say that we watch you and we know what you're doing, and blah blah blah. It's a threat. It's a threatening message. It's one to intimidate. It's one to put fear into me. So how did they know I went there? Well, let's first look at the message. There's the number, and then there's the subject. Here's making use of pork will be, and here you'll see it's 10 months ago, 2015. So this has been going on a long time. Nothing has changed. But the question is how did they know I went to the mosque? Did they follow me? Well, they couldn't have followed me because I'm trying to alleviate any deniability they had. So when I went, I took lots of turns and I went this way and I went that way and I stopped and I waited and I drove on and then I backtracked and then I went around a block and then I came back again. So if they followed me, I would have known. I would have known unless they had GPS in my car. But if they were using GPS, then why would they call me so many times? And I think that that's what all these numbers are. I think that they're using these numbers to call me and then triangulate the position of my car, my vehicle. Or this is just a cover-up. Who knows? Everything with them is deniability. So they probably have multiple layers of information acquisition. But the problem is there you go. That's the message. It's intended to intimidate. It's intended to insult and to threaten, and it's intended to disempower me and to put me in a state of fear or anxiety. And I'm not a Muslim. There's no reason to behave like this to anybody. But I think that this is going on in a lot of places in Australia, and I think that these abuses are happening a lot. So it's offensive and it's illegal, and they shouldn't be allowed to do this just because they belong to rich white Anglo-Saxon Protestant religion, and they have rich daddies and mommies and rich politicians that look after their best interests and pass laws that allow them to commit crimes. Okay, so very alarming that they would do that, and obviously they were using that phone number to contact my phone and find out my position, and then the harassment message on my return home will bring you back some pork, indicating that they knew that I went to the mosque. Or the other alternative too is that it was all just bullshit, and they heard me talking in my unit, but I never talked in my unit about it. I just went straight there. I just said to my partner, I'm going out for a bit. So it's pretty clear to me that they used a phone number. They called my cell to find the location of the cell, and then they sent me harassment text afterwards when they were confident that they knew where I was. This requires access to high-level technology, and this is what I'm talking about. Them accessing infrastructure and Telstra resources or telecommunications resources and government resources that they shouldn't be allowed access to. I'm not a threat. I'm not even a Muslim. Now this is the problem, and this is important to realize. A lot of Muslims out there may feel like they're targeted. Look at how white I am. Seriously, you can't get much whiter, and I'm being targeted. And it's because I live in a unit that they want to own, and because I found out they're committing crimes that they don't want anybody to know about. So it's got nothing to do with you being brown or white or black. It's got to do with you being a threat, and if you are a threat to them, then they'll attack you. It doesn't matter that I'm not a Muslim, and if I was a Muslim, that would just be another excuse for them to attack me. It's just easy for them to attack somebody under a label that they can say is no good, or Jesus says that you're Muslim, blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is it's not just Muslims that are targeted. It's not just Sri Lankans that are targeted. It's not just anybody that's targeted. They target people that are a threat to them. These Anglicans find me a threat because I found out something that they're doing that's illegal and wrong. I caught them in illegal activities, and now I'm talking about it. Very powerful people are involved in this organization, and very powerful people are making money off of Incenra, off of this attack that they've been using against me. So it's, so first of all, it's not a Muslim Christian thing. It's a power, money thing. It's about power and it's about money. It's about, because Australia is a white Anglo-Saxon, a WASP country, Anglo-Saxon Protestant country. Maybe Catholics might argue with that, but basically it's a WASP. Because Australia has power based on that religion. That religion is going to be utilized as like an elixir to get the populations moving, to make the populations think what they want them to think, to influence popular opinion, to influence popular vote, to influence popular economic interest, to influence popular political interest. So it's about money and it's about power, and it just happens that these criminals have wrapped themselves up in this Anglican cloak. And it's got nothing to do with what Jesus taught. And these attacks are completely based on financial and economic and political gain of power and influence. So it's unfortunate, but I think it's only probably going to get worse, especially if people aren't going to listen. If people aren't going to be warned, and if people are just going to go on thinking that their phones are secure and their computers are secure, and if they're just going to ignore this threat, which is incentive, and not study it because I don't have the resources, then it's only going to get worse. And all you're doing, the smart people out there, all you're doing is allowing them to get away with it, and one day they may just come and attack you. So please, smart girls and smart guys, I've said it before, use your resources and try to get to the bottom of this incentive. It's not a hoax. They are able to attack air-gapped machines. It's not a joke. Serious, it's not a joke. Don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. The last thing I want to say is that don't focus on the whole phone thing. Don't focus on the whole phone thing, because this is not what's important. What's important is the computer attacks, the incinerator. What's important is that they're able to attack air-gapped machines, and they're able to do it underneath the operating system and without any evidence being left. All these attacks on phones and all these phone hacking things like the Rupert Murdoch phone scandal, I think that's just smoke. I think the real danger is this incinerator, and I think all this other stuff with all these hacks and website hacks and the Panama Papers and all that nonsense and Snowden, I think that's all secondary. I think incinerator is I think that's the shit. I think that's the real dangerous Papa exploit. I think that all this other stuff with all these phone exploits are just trying to cover that up. I think that with incinerator, by being able to access a machine, and Intel, AMD, and PowerPC, an old PowerPC machine was controlled like with this. So if they can do that, and if they can access those machines and manipulate the environments of those machines, then they can basically do whatever they want. And of course they're going to want to cover that up, and that's what I mean by all these they can even access the machines and create exploitable environments and then say it was something else, if you know what I mean. They can go into a machine, break it, and then have an exploit and say I found an exploit, when really the exploit wouldn't have been there unless they had put it in there in the first place, like a developer developing for the kernel code and then putting in an exploit and saying, aha, I found an exploit, when really he put the stupid thing there in the first place, just to be able to sell the exploit to a company that would pay him $500,000 to find out about it. But it's not what we're about, is it? What we're about is creating a secure and open computing environment that we can trust, and that we can trust our data to be secure on that environment, where we won't have a foolfully Anglican like foolfully next door sticking his crooked, bent, hook nose into our business, trying to see what we're doing or when we're doing it or how we're doing it. That shouldn't be allowed. And this nonsense about saying it's all for the security of the nation and we gotta fight terrorists, well, I don't buy that either. It's not right.